This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. All right, let's talk about the several hours of testimony from Robert Mueller yesterday. But let's first discuss the tantrum-throwing baby boy man-child who uses the White House to play president as though he's having some authoritarian fever dream. Let's not forget that Donald Trump claimed that he wasn't going to watch much, if any, of the Robert Mueller testimony.
No, I'm not going to be watching, probably, maybe I'll see a little bit of it. I'm not going to be watching Mueller because you can't take all those bites out of the apple.
Well, it should come as no surprise to anybody that that was a lie, because he started tweeting malignment about Robert Mueller the evening before his testimony and didn't stop all day as he live tweeted the hearings. And I suppose if you find yourself sympathetic to dipshittery, you might say to yourself that, you don't blame him, because the entire day was pretty devastating to the oft-repeated narrative of no collusion, no obstruction. It was devastating because it took little time to establish why exactly Donald Trump wasn't charged with a crime. Spoiler alert, it isn't because he didn't commit one. It was established that Donald Trump was in no way, shape, or form totally exonerated. It was also established that Donald Trump could very well face indictment and criminal prosecution after he leaves office. And additionally, it was established that impeachment is very well on the table as a constitutional means to hold Donald Trump accountable for his crimes. Let's start with why Trump wasn't indicted, why Trump walked away from this without having been charged with a crime. When there were so many instances of criminal activity outlined clearly within the 448 pages of the final report. The day started with Chairman Jerry Nadler questioning Mueller about his decision not to charge Donald Trump with, among other things, obstruction of justice.
And now, reading from page 2 of volume 2 of your report that's on the screen, you wrote, quote, "If we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, however, we are unable to reach that judgment," close quote. Now, does that say there was no obstruction?
No.
In fact, you were actually unable to conclude the president did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
Well, we, at the outset, determined that we, when it came to the president's culpability, we needed to go forward only after taking into account the OLC opinion that indicated that a president, a sitting president, cannot be indicted.
Like I've said many times in the past, even if Donald Trump were to actually stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, he would, under the DOJ's current Office of Legal Counsel's opinion, not be able to be prosecuted until after he left office. And in a world where Nancy Pelosi wasn't Speaker of the House and preventing an impeachment inquiry from moving forward, where all of the evidence of his crimes could be compiled and presented in a trial in the Senate, a trial that wouldn't and frankly couldn't be ignored by the American people, and a trial at which all of the unobscured evidence of Donald Trump's felonies would be uncovered. But right now, we don't live in that world. We live in this one, where Nancy Pelosi is opposed to holding Donald Trump accountable. Next covered was whether or not the Mueller report had served as any sort of exoneration for Donald Trump.
Director Mueller, the president has repeatedly claimed that your report found there was no obstruction and that it completely and totally exonerated him. But that is not what your report said, is it?
Correct. It is not what the report said.
So the report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Now, in fact, your report expressly states that it does not exonerate the president.
It does.
Look, in a normal, run-of-the-mill prosecutorial process, a statement about the non-exoneration of the subject of an investigation would never happen. And that is because there is only ever one single person in the entire population of 330 million people in America who can't face justice through criminal prosecution. And that's the president. That is why the statement was necessary. And with all this talk about being the one man who needs prosecuted, but who happens to be immune from such basic, fundamental processes, the answer was established that Donald Trump most certainly can be indicted and criminally prosecuted after he leaves office.
Okay, but could you charge the president with a crime after he left office?
Yes.
You believe that you could charge the president of the United States with obstruction of justice after he left office?
Yes.
And then, again, there was the matter of if none of these standards of justice, which apply to every other American in the nation, can be applied to Donald Trump while he's president, what can be done to hasten his not being president? The answer, although it took a bit to get to, is impeachment.
Director Mueller, at your May 29th, 2019 press conference, you explained that, quote, the opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing, end quote. That process other than the criminal justice system for accusing a president of wrongdoing, is that impeachment?
I'm not going to comment on that.
In your report, you also wrote that you did not want to, quote, potentially preempt constitutional processes for addressing presidential misconduct, end quote. For the non-lawyers in the room, what did you mean by, quote, potentially preempt constitutional processes?
I'm not going to try to explain that.
That actually is coming from page 1 of volume 2. In the footnote is the reference to this. What are those constitutional processes?
I think I heard you mention at least one.
Impeachment.
You see, this is our duty as a people to our Constitution, to our supposed reverence for justice for all. We must move forward with impeachment in the pursuit of justice. Just because a conviction in the Senate and subsequent removal from office isn't guaranteed doesn't mean we don't hold fast to the principles of equal justice under the law. There might not be a single case brought to trial by our justice system if they were required to guarantee a prosecution. You don't pursue justice only when a conviction is certain. You don't only pursue justice when public opinion is overwhelming. You pursue justice, you always pursue justice. And to do otherwise is a gross dereliction and abdication of duty, and a perversion of that which we claim to hold dear. So I say this to Nancy Pelosi and others who agree with her strategy over principles method. Abraham Lincoln said something that so purely applies to this moment in history that it bears repeating. The probability that we may fail in the struggle ought not to deter us from the support of a cause we believe to be just. Do you hear that, Madam Speaker? I hope so, because the future of our nation depends upon it.